All right, welcome to the Podcast of Philipe, and today we're doing a deep dive. We're going to uncover some really cool low-tech innovations that have popped up over the past couple of years. We're talking global stuff, like how these initiatives are spreading around the world, but also a focused look at this project called the Biosphère DÉSair. It's all about seeing how these solutions, these sustainable ways of doing things, are actually being put into practice, especially in places where resources are a bit scarce. So think of this as us sifting through everything, all the research and information, and pulling out the most important bits for you.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. These last 2 years, it's been almost like a boom for low tech. And it's not just random projects popping up either. There's this sort of concentrated effort, like what we see with the Biosphère DÉSair project, which has been going on, like you said, from 2023 to 2024. And then there's this book, Perspectives Low Tech, published in 2023. All this together gives us so much to dig into.
Right. So let's get into it. I mean, one of the first things that jumps out is just how much the low tech labs network has expanded. Like they have over 956 low tech initiatives documented, and that's spread across 91 countries. And it's everything, right? We're talking about energy, how to grow food sustainably, all kinds of stuff. And what's interesting is that this documentation, it's constantly being updated. It shows how dynamic this whole field is.
Totally. It's not just a static list. And when you combine that with the kind of analysis we see in Perspectives Low Tech, it's clear that people aren't just recording these innovations. They're trying to understand them, figure out what makes them pick, and then share those insights with others.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. You have this big global picture, right? And then you zoom in on this specific project, the Biosphère DÉSair, which is happening in Baja California, Mexico. And it's more than just an idea. It's a real-world experiment. They're out there right now showing how low-tech solutions work when resources are limited. It's like a test case for sustainable living in a tough environment.
Yeah, and the fact that they chose a desert environment, that's significant. Think about it. The source material tells us that arid lands, they're expanding globally. It's a big chunk of the planet now, and a lot of people live in these areas.
Yeah.
So what they're figuring out in the biosphere, those lessons, they're going to become more and more relevant all over the world.
Absolutely. And it's not just about surviving out there. The Biosphère DÉSair, they're aiming higher than that. They want to create a way of life that's sustainable, sure, but also healthy, accessible, and this is important, desirable. It's about living with dignity, in sync with the environment.
That's a key point, isn't it? This idea of dignified and desirable. They're going beyond just meeting basic needs. They're thinking about the whole person, their well-being, all within this framework of sustainability.
Okay, so let's break down some of the specific things they're doing. On the food front, they've got bioponics going. Now, for people who aren't familiar, bioponics means growing plants without soil, just using water that's got all the nutrients the plants need. And get this, they're using human urine processed through a biofilter to make it safe as the nutrient source for their leafy greens.
Yeah, that bioponics system is a really great example of closed-loop thinking. They're taking something we usually consider waste, human urine, and seeing it as a valuable input. It completely flips our perspective on resources. And of course, that biofilter is essential for transforming the urine into something that can actually nourish the plants.
Then they've got spirulina cultivation, also using urine as a nutrient source. I mean, the protein yield they're getting compared to something like beef, it's crazy high. And they're using way less water. Plus, there's this interesting note about vitamin B12 assimilation. It challenges some of the things we thought we knew.
That vitamin B12 detail, that's really interesting. It shows how these experiments out in the real world, they can lead to new scientific discoveries, refining what we understand about these systems.
They're not stopping there. They've also got insect farming going on. Crickets and black soldier fly larvae. It tackles two things at once, getting protein and managing waste. The larvae break down the waste from their dry toilets, and then they become food for the crickets. It's a really clever cycle. And of course, the environmental impact is much, much lower compared to raising traditional livestock.
That integration of insect farming, it's so elegant. They're solving multiple problems at the same time, getting a sustainable source of protein while dealing with organic waste in a really efficient way. Using those black soldier fly larvae for multiple purposes, that's like peak resource utilization.
They're even growing mushrooms. They've got these pleurotes growing on a mixture of straw and the compost from, you guessed it, the black soldier fly larvae. Resource recycling at its best, right? And to round things out, they're using lacto-fermentation to preserve food, which avoids the need for refrigeration. And they've got a solar parabolic cooker, super energy efficient.
It really shows how low-tech isn't just about one thing. It's about growing together different techniques and approaches to meet all sorts of needs, all in a sustainable way. And that lacto-fermentation, it's a classic example of relying on traditional methods that require minimal energy.
Water management is obviously a huge deal in the desert. They're using solar desalination to get fresh water from the sea. They figured out they need about 40 liters a day for 2 people. And then they've got this closed-loop system connecting their bioponics, mushroom cultivation, even the shower. They're reusing gray water, using biodegradable products. It's all about squeezing every last drop.
That solar desalination, that's essential when you're in a place with limited freshwater sources. And you can see how much emphasis they put on conservation, carefully calculating their water usage. That integrated system, that's a really smart way to minimize waste and maximize reuse, especially when water is scarce.
Now, for energy, they're all about renewables and efficiency. They've got a small solar panel, and then they've got this thing called a fitness utile, which is basically a pedal-powered generator. It's human-powered energy. And then they've even converted smartphones into laptops to keep their energy use low. It's like they're exercising and generating power at the same time.
It really shows their commitment to renewable sources and being mindful of how much energy they're using. That fitness utile concept, it's pretty innovative. It connects physical activity with producing energy and repurposing smartphones. That's a great example of being resourceful and using what you have.
For waste management, they're using dry toilets to collect, well, excrement. And they're treating it as a resource, of course. And the black soldier fly larvae are a big part of this, composting both human waste and leftover food. And their approach to sustainability, it extends to their shelter and clothes, too. They've got a lightweight habitat made from a biosourced textile and a low-tech wardrobe made from linen. It's all about durability and being able to repair things.
It's like they're thinking long-term, you know? Sustainable living goes beyond just systems. It's about everything, including the materials you use for basic necessities. That focus on durable, repairable, and biosourced materials, that's important.
And here's the thing. They're not just implementing these systems, they're studying them too. They've got this whole scientific protocol to monitor the participants' health, both physical and mental. They're using things like actimeters and vests to collect all sorts of data.
That kind of scientific rigor is essential. It goes beyond just seeing if the technology works. It's about understanding the impact on people, their well-being. That's how you really evaluate the effectiveness of low-tech living.
And I think the low-tech lab's emphasis on community and open source collaboration is huge. They're working with experts from all sorts of fields, and they share a lot of their designs and resources openly. That's crucial for getting these ideas out there, getting more people involved.
That open, collaborative spirit, it's at the heart of the low-tech movement. Sharing knowledge, working across disciplines. That's how they're able to make progress so quickly and make sure these solutions are accessible to everyone.
They've definitely run into challenges along the way, which I think is just as important to talk about. There were problems with water production during a storm, some inefficiencies with harvesting spirulina. The crickets weren't growing as fast as they expected because of the cold desert nights. Plus, they had setbacks with the bioplastic they were using in the bioponics system, and their initial solar cooker actually broke.
It's a good reminder that even the best ideas need to be tested and refined, especially in real-world conditions. They're learning from these challenges, whether it's water production, harvesting, those biological processes, the choice of materials, or the reliability of equipment. It's all valuable information for improving low-tech systems.
There were also some ergonomic issues with the pedal power generator, some ventilation problems in the habitat when it got really hot, and their footwear wasn't holding up too well in that harsh desert environment.
Those are all practical considerations, right? User comfort, climate control, how materials perform in challenging conditions. It all matters when you're talking about making low-tech solutions that are truly viable and that people will actually want to use long-term.
So looking back at these last 2 years, there's been a lot of progress. We've seen a huge increase in documented low-tech initiatives and this really insightful real-world application with the Biosphère DÉSair project.
It's been pretty amazing, right? All these innovations in food, water, energy, how they're handling waste. Plus, we've seen how important it is to work together and share knowledge openly. And yeah, they've faced challenges, but that's part of the process. Those challenges, they offer valuable lessons for the future.
And for you listening, I hope this has given you a good overview, some surprising things to think about when it comes to sustainable living without feeling totally overwhelmed.
The key takeaway is that more resilient, environmentally conscious ways of life, they're possible. And the low-tech lab, they're showing us how. Their commitment to making these solutions accessible, that's huge.
If you want to dive deeper, you can check out the Low Tech Lab's website. It's lowtechlab.org. They've got this great wiki, too. Tons of information there.
Thinking about everything we've talked about, all those closed-loop systems, it makes you wonder, where in your own life could you start to see waste differently? Could you look at it as a potential resource, something you could use again, maybe in a completely new way?
Oh, and before we forget, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel today. If you like what we're doing here on the Podcast of Philipe, your support would really mean a lot. It helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.